All right, today we're diving into 3 of the strangest, most mind-bending missing persons cases you'll ever hear about. And trust me, these aren't your typical stories. These are puzzles where every clue just makes things weirder, completely flipping what we think we know about survival and, just plain logic. I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? How can someone just vanish? But the cases we're looking at today, they take that question and make it even more chilling. It's not just about disappearing. It's about how someone can disappear when all the evidence, every single clue, says they should have been totally, completely safe.
We've got 5 buddies who literally walk into a blizzard, leaving their perfectly good car behind. Then there's a YouTuber who documents his own last adventure into the unknown. And get this, a little boy who disappears, comes home, but maybe wasn't the same boy at all.
Okay, let's jump into our first case. We're going back to February 24th, 1978. There were these 5 friends. Everyone in town knew them as the Yuba County 5. They went out to a college basketball game, a totally normal night out. And then they were just gone, never seen alive again. So let's break down the timeline, because this is where it gets really strange. They finish the game, they stop at a market for some snacks, just a regular night. But then, 4 days later, their car shows up, and it's abandoned on this remote mountain road, like 70 miles off course. After that, nothing. Just silence for 4 straight months until the snow finally melts and reveals the first horrific clue. Now, to really get how bizarre this is, you have to understand who these guys were. They were this super tight-knit group of friends, all with some intellectual disabilities, and they all lived at home. Their whole world revolved around basketball. I mean, the very next day was their own big championship game. Their jerseys, their shoes, everything was laid out, ready to go. They had every reason in the world to head straight home that night. And this is where we hit our first huge, glaring question mark. Their car, right? It's found stuck in the snow. But here's the thing. It wasn't broken. It still had gas. It was in great shape. The cops even said 5 guys could have easily just pushed it out. So why on earth would they leave a perfectly good car to hike for miles into a freezing blizzard wearing just, light jackets? It makes zero sense. Okay, fast forward 4 months. The body of one of the men, Ted Weir, is found. He's in a Forest Service trailer almost 20 miles from the car. And the cause of death is just heartbreaking. He's starved, losing over 100 pounds. But here's the part that will absolutely blow your mind. The trailer was basically a survivalist paradise. It was packed with enough canned food and fuel to keep all 5 of them alive for a year. A whole year! And he starved to death in a room full of food that he never even opened. This just complete lack of logical behavior, it made investigators zoom in on one guy in the group, Gary Mathias. See, he had a driver's license, but he also had a history of severe schizophrenia. And the main theory that emerged was that maybe, just maybe, he was off his meds, had some sort of psychotic episode, and somehow convinced or compelled the others to follow him on this absolutely fatal detour into the mountains. But even if that's true, it just doesn't explain everything, does it? It doesn't explain why Ted Weir wouldn't eat the food right in front of him. It doesn't explain leaving the car. So we're left with this huge, haunting question of what in the world actually went down on that mountain. All right, let's shift gears to our second case. This one's much more recent, right in the age of YouTube and social media. It's a story about an adventurer, a really weird cave, and a final video that basically became his last will and testament. So that quote comes from a guy named Kenny Veach. He was an outdoor YouTuber, just loved exploring the Nevada desert. And back in 2014, he's out there and finds this strange cave shaped like the letter M. And he said it just gave him this incredibly creepy feeling, made his whole body vibrate. He'd never felt anything like it before. Now, people in his comment section were like, dude, stay away from there. But Kenny, he was determined to go back and find that cave again. So he posts one last video telling everyone he's heading back out. He walks into the desert and is never seen or heard from again. And this is where the story gets even weirder. Kenny mentioned hearing this low, rumbling noise near the cave. Well, later on, some investigators went out to that same area, and they actually recorded this bizarre, deep, uneven sound. They said it wasn't like any animal or machine they'd ever heard. The way they described it, it was almost like it was breathing. This part of the desert isn't too far from places like Area 51. So you have to wonder, what did Kenny stumble upon? Was it just some strange natural phenomenon? A secret military experiment gone wrong? Or was that creepy feeling he got a warning about something else entirely? To this day, nobody knows.
For our last case, we're gonna jump way back in time. This is a story that everyone thought was solved for almost 100 years, until modern science came along and uncovered a truth so shocking it completely rewrote a family's entire history. So picture this. It's 1912. A little 4-year-old boy named Bobby Dunbar vanishes during a family fishing trip. The search for him was absolutely massive. 8 months go by, and then they find a boy who looks just like him with a handyman named William Walters. There's this huge court battle, and in the end, the boy goes home with the Dunbars. Everyone thought, case closed. Well, it wasn't. Not until 2004, anyway. But here's the twist. This was anything but a simple reunion. While the Dunbar family was celebrating, another woman stepped forward. Her name was Julia Anderson, a poor single mom, and she was adamant that the boy was her son, Bruce. She said she'd just let Walters take him on a short trip. So now you have 2 different mothers, both claiming the same little boy. And you can probably guess how this went. In court and in the newspapers, the Dunbars, who were wealthy and had connections, they won. Julia Anderson, on the other hand, was pretty much discredited, painted as an unfit mother. Her claims were just brushed aside. And so the boy went home with the Dunbars, grew up, had his own kids, and lived his whole life as Bobby Dunbar. And for almost 100 years, that was the official story. But there were always these little doubts, these nagging questions that lingered in the family. Finally, Bobby Dunbar's own granddaughter started digging into it. Her investigation eventually led her to Julia Anderson's descendants, and together they all decided it was time to find out the truth, once and for all. And this is the moment where an entire century of family history just crumbled. In 2004, they did a DNA test. They compared the DNA of the son of the boy raised as Bobby with the DNA of his supposed cousin from the real Dunbar line. The result? A 0% match. He was not Bobby Dunbar. After 90 long years, modern science proved that Julia Anderson, the poorest single mother, had been telling the truth the entire time. So when you look at all 3 of these stories, what ties them together? You have a man who starves to death surrounded by food, an explorer who disappears chasing a weird vibration, and a family that literally raised the wrong child for a century. In every single one of these cases, the more you learn, the less anything makes sense. You know, these stories are a powerful reminder that the simplest explanation isn't always the right one. Sometimes the truth is way, way stranger than anything you could make up. And it leaves us with these impossible questions, right? What really happened to the actual Bobby Dunbar? What did Kenny Veach find out there in the desert? And what on earth, whether it was human or something else, made 5 men leave a warm car and walk to their deaths in a blizzard? When all the facts just defy logic, what's left?